For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Greg DiPietro. I'm the president of Wayland-Weston Rowing, and I have the privilege of introducing our speaker tonight, as well as another special guest. Speaking tonight will be Caryn Davies, and with her is Jen Goldsack, who we are thrilled to have. Caryn and Jen know each other through rowing. Jen is a 2008 Olympian, lightweight double, and a 2007 world silver medalist in the lightweight single. So we have some pretty high-powered talent here with us tonight, and we're delighted to welcome them here and enjoy the time that we have, especially a couple days before the regional qualifiers. So introducing Caryn Davies is a pleasure for me. She is regarded as the most decorated U.S. oarswoman in Olympic history. I would amend that a little bit to say that she is the most accomplished and dominant rower, male or female, in U.S. history, and here's why. So Caryn has competed and represented the United States in 3 Olympic Games, in 2004, 2008, and 2012. In 2004, she rowed in the women's 8 that won the silver medal, and in 2008 and 2012, she stroked the gold medal winning boats for consecutive years, which is an amazing accomplishment. She is a 4-time world champion, a 5-time gold medalist at world rowing events, and has competed all over the world. In 2013, Caryn took her talents to Oxford, and as a visiting student, she stroked her college's 8, that would be the men's 8, to head of the river championships at both spring forfeits and summer 8s, which are 4-day bump racing regattas. That was the first time that any such feat had ever been accomplished in Oxford history. In 2015, she returned to Oxford as a full-time student pursuing her MBA and stroked the women's blue boat in the boat race versus Cambridge for the very first time that they had ever rowed on the tideway on the same course that the men had raced on since 1829. Also victorious in that race. So obviously very, very impressive. As impressive as all of her rowing accomplishments are, her academic accomplishments are equally so. So Caryn has an undergraduate degree from Harvard, where she led the Radcliffe crew to a national championship in 2003. She has her law degree from Columbia University and her MBA from Oxford. She joins us tonight, and in 2 weeks she will be leaving to go to Princeton, where she will be training with the U.S. Olympic team for the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. So it is especially timely that she's here with us tonight, a couple of days before many of you are going to be competing for an opportunity to go to nationals and pursue a national championship. So it is with great pleasure that I welcome Caryn Davies. So please give a warm Wayland-Weston welcome.
Thanks, Greg. So I also want just Jen to get right up here. I'm going to say a few words about my friend Jen here.
Don't believe her.
So, from my perspective, this young woman showed up at trials in 2007 for the lightweight single, and we're all just like, who is this girl? And then she blew everybody out of the water, completely dominated, then went to the World Championships and got a silver medal in the single. And then, obviously, next year went on and raced in the lightweight double at the Olympics. And so backing up a little bit, I only later learned out how she ended up there at trials where she was. So if you speak to her, you'll see that she has a bit of an accent. From the motherland, the England land. So she had been trying out for the team in the UK, and for various reasons, which she can talk more about, didn't make the team. And basically, just went online and figured out that the US trials, which I think it's unusual that we have a trial system that you can just show up and race, and if you win, you're in. And you had like 2 weeks to US trials. So I bought a plane ticket, packed her stuff, and showed up, and as I said, blew everybody away. But and so we were all a little bit hesitant at first. Like I said, we were a bit like, who is this girl? Where did she come from? What is she doing here? But she quickly won us over, weaseled her way into our hearts, and is now one of my best friends. And she's here visiting from Florida, so I'm so excited to have her here as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Caryn. Thrilled to be here. I'll let you.
So we just thought we'd keep it pretty informal and just kind of open up a conversation. I thought I'd say a few words, Jen can say a few words, and then we can have some questions. I'd love to hear more about what you guys are doing. We talked a little bit earlier. I talked with some of the girls here about this race coming up this weekend. But anyway, as I was thinking about coming here and what kinds of things that you might be interested in hearing, and like how can I possibly convince you that I was in your position? I am in many ways still in your position. I'm terrified. I'm moving to Princeton in 2 weeks, and I am terrified of trying out for the team again. I was thinking about when I first started rowing, which was in Australia actually. My family was on sabbatical in Tasmania, and because I didn't have anything better to do at 5 a.m., I followed along, tagged alongside my brother, who had already started rowing at that point, down to the boathouse. And actually, they almost told me that I couldn't row, because this club, like, they already had a lot of women. They had kind of a strong women's team. They were recruiting my brother, but they were kind of like, oh, we don't really need any more women, right? Like, but it was like, all right, okay, fine, you can get in a boat. And things went well, except my first race, it was in a quad, and I'd only been rowing for a few weeks, and the girl in front of me turned around and she said, okay, the start is 3/4 half, 3/4 length and full. And I said, how many strokes of each? And she didn't answer me. She just turned back and got ready, and I was still pondering that when the starting horn went, and I just completely missed the first 5 strokes of the race, so it didn't matter anyway. But it worked out. And then I ended up making my way into the first 8. So I was a freshman in high school, and I was in the school's first 8. And this first 8 had won the state championships the year before, and there was a lot of talking about how we're going to keep the streak going and make it a great year, and we had a lot of talent, and I was just terrified. I felt like I don't actually know what I'm doing. I don't even know how many strokes of 3/4 half, 3/4 full at the start we're supposed to do. And in the week leading into the race, I was beside myself. I would just sit in class and feel nervous, and I would write in my diary over and over again, just worry about your own seat. Just, don't think about anything else, just your own seat. You're just from here to here, that's all you got to worry about. And so the race came, and we didn't win. In fact, we had quite a terrible race. I don't know if it was my fault or not. I was 7th seat. And whatever, life goes on. We got second, and we were a bit sad, but it turned out, I kept rowing anyway. It wasn't that awful. I kept rowing. And actually, I started working I came back to upstate New York, which is where I'm from. Started working with a coach there, who became a mentor and is still one of my best friends. She now lives in Boston. And she pretty quickly noticed. She said, you put so much pressure on yourself. You're a great rower, that's awesome, that's great, but you're really holding yourself back because you get down on yourself when you don't have a great performance. And because of that, you get really nervous, and vice versa. You get nervous and then you get down on yourself. And she just basically said, have a little self-compassion. You can't have your best performance every day, and that's okay. And that was this big revelation for me. And I actually think that was really when I started to have some real success. So as you're going into this weekend, don't put a lot of pressure on yourself. And more than that, so I was thinking back on that race in Australia. And I was thinking, regardless of the outcome, if we had gotten second, but if I had just been able to like look up a little bit and like look around and realize that, hey, I'm in a boat with 7 of my best friends at the time. I don't really keep in touch with them, but at the time there were 7 of my best friends. It just like, and also Lake Barrington in Tasmania is like one of the most beautiful places you can row. It's this, is it glacial? I don't know, whatever. It's these steep wooded sides full of eucalyptus trees and this deep, deep, clear lake and just wallabies bouncing around. They shit like Canada geese, man. They are so annoying. You gotta like tiptoe your way. Okay, and then put the boat in. But like I was so lucky to be there, and in some ways I feel like I wasn't able to enjoy it enough because I was just so freaking nervous, and I was just so head down, like from here to here. That's all I have to worry about. So look up, look around, you know, like smile at the person in the boat. Heck, smile at the person in the other boat. In fact, one of no, I'm actually serious. Yeah, that'll really screw it up. Just be like, hey. So Tom Terhar, the Olympic coach, is really good at pre-race speeches. And one of the things that he always said that I really appreciated is he would say, all right, when you get on the start line, take a deep breath, look left. Now maybe it's Canada. Hey, good to see you. Look right. Maybe it's Romania. Beat us in 2004. Had a bone to pick with them for many years. Hey, good to see you. Because you know what? They're there to make you faster. Yes, okay, they're trying to beat you. But if they weren't there, you wouldn't go very fast, would you? You know, you probably just row down the course steady state and be like, woo, I won. But it wouldn't mean much, would it? So having your competition there who's trying to beat you, that's like the most honor that they can show you. And of course, the most honor that you can show them is trying to kick their ass. Beat them. It's trying to beat them. And you know, it's Billie Jean King. You all know who Billie Jean King is, right? Billie Jean King said something so amazing. Pressure is a privilege. When you're feeling the pressure, when you're feeling nervous, that means that you're doing something pretty important, something pretty cool. So anyway, back to the like, head up, look around, remember that. Acknowledge your competition. Feel thankful for the fact that you get to sit here on the start line with your friends under a whole bunch of pressure, but it's really only pressure you put on yourselves because you care and care about each other, and enjoy it. That's really all I want to say. Enjoy it. Over to you, Jen.
The old switcheroo. So that was terrific, and I think that you know, the main points that Caryn touched on in terms of, you know, how to feel on the start line and in the lead up to the event. I think the privilege of being able to go through this experience with some really good friends. You know, I think that's absolutely key. And so my start in rowing was quite different to Caryn. She started in high school. I have the greatest respect for you guys. I was an idiot when I was your age. I'm still kind of an idiot sometimes. I would not have had the discipline to do the sports that you did. I played like ball sports and stuff growing up. I played a sport called netball, which is big everywhere apart from America, I think. Imagine basketball and small ball common. The 7 of you. It's quite fun. I played that all the way through high school. I played rugby for my first 2 years at university, so I didn't actually start rowing until I was a junior in college. And I exploded my knee in a way that still makes me cringe when I think about it when I was playing rugby. And I never cared for the rowers at university. They walked around with their blazers and I just thought they were awful. And then I was just like, wow, I won't be rowing anymore, so I guess I have to sit down, so I guess I'll be rowing. And I sort of turned up and, you know, in a not dissimilar way to Caryn, you turned up to a very successful team, you know, it was like, you know, apprehensive. I was told to, you know, sit there very square and try not to get in the way. I think they took me because I was really strong and I was I played sort of England students in other sports, so they knew that I was a good athlete, but I certainly wasn't a good rower to start with. And so here's an interesting thing, and I think this sort of is a theme that could be useful, and actually could be useful for you. when you go back down to Princeton, I realised that I wasn't going to be the best rower in the boat, but I was strong and I was determined and I was going to be the last person to give up. But I realised it's a team sport and what can you bring to the team. And so, for that, it was being, can I be the most supportive person in and out of the boat? I'm going to do my job in my seat, like Caryn said, to the best of my abilities, right? But is there anything else I can bring? Can I give someone like a pat on the back before we go and tell them that, you've got this? You're going to crush. If someone's having a rough day before an egg test, can I be there for them? I could always pull the fastest out, that was never my problem. But when I first started, I wasn't a great rower. I got there, right? I got to the Olympic Games, it wasn't terrible. But, I recognise that there's a lot of ways that you can be fantastic in a team and that you can make a difference. And building on that, and again, sort of thinking about Caryn being incredibly bold and making this sort of audacious step claim to go back and, really put the cherry on the icing on top of the cake that's been her extraordinary career, and I have no doubt she's going to do it. Caryn's experience at the 2008 Olympics was quite different. I was in a two-person boat. I was in the lightweight women's double. The woman I sat on the start line at the Olympic Games with is the only person my actual sister allows me to call my other sister. She's a very, very good friend. She turns 40 next weekend. We're going on vacation together. She's pregnant with her second kid. I'm like, we've got to go away. It's going to be the last time you get a break in a long time. But that friendship has maintained. But I'll tell you something that I think is useful, especially knowing a little bit about the team that you guys have. I think one of the things that we were missing at the Games was it was our first Olympics, and we didn't have that very experienced coach, and we didn't have those very experienced athletes in the boat. And I think had we been, funny story, why do I think with the benefit of hindsight we didn't reach our potential at the Olympics? Because we weren't good enough. It's not like we did anything, wrong. I don't think we deserve a medal that someone else has. I want to be really clear about that. But I think the thing that we were missing, that X factor, that was the difference between winning an Olympic medal and not, was it was our first Games, and so we were like, okay, well, we're really fast. We're hitting all of our numbers. We've done brilliantly at the World Cups. We're a crew to be reckoned with. It's just another day at the office. And that was such a mistake. I sat on the start line of the Olympics with my best friend, and we treated it like another day at the office instead of being like, this is awesome. Realizing that the pressure is a privilege and just going for it, taking some risks, right? And so I think there's a balance. You're in two months. But at the same time, it wasn't practice. It was extraordinary, and I don't think we rose to the occasion. And so I think that's something sort of worth putting into the mix as well. And, we're giving a lot of advice, and you'll take what works for you, what works for your team. But had we had that more experienced athlete or coach with us, who perhaps could have coached us through that, we would have learned. We would have been even better than we were, and we were good. And so I say to you guys, if there's a more experienced sort of athlete in your boat, if your coach is very accomplished, has a history of success, you guys have been a really good team for a number of years, who in your team is that sort of leader? Who's done this before, right? Who's won these tight races? And for those of you who sort of fill that role, step up to that. Share your knowledge. And for folks, if this is your first regionals, if this is going to be your first nationals, you've got to think about it. You guys are going to nationals. You don't just accidentally end up there. You've got to think like it's starting tonight. You guys are going to nationals. Who can you learn from? Who's going to give you that sort of that edge? Who's going to tell you what it feels like to sit on the start line, at regionals and deliver the kind of performance that gets you there? It goes back to this idea that, none of you are trying to qualify for single. You're all in a team, and what can you learn from each other? What are the strengths that you can turn to your teammates for, and what's that unique thing that you bring to your boat? So I don't want to overload you guys with stories or advice, and I really liked your idea. What questions do you guys have for us? I feel like, we're pretty open.
A question for Caryn. You've accomplished quite a bit in the rowing world. What motivates you now?
Ooh, that's a good one. It's changed a little bit over the years, but not a lot. And I actually want to go back to 2004, my first Olympics, and tell you what motivated me then. Because I was thinking a lot about it, and I thought this is really important to understand. Why do I want to do this? And it came down to I love the people. I love my teammates. I love everybody around. I even think the officials are awesome, even though sometimes they think they know too much. And I actually went around and I asked my teammates the same thing. I was like, why do you love rowing? I just love rowing. I just want to share. I love rowing. And one of my teammates said, I want to prove to my mother that I'm worth something. And I was like, ooh, that's very different. don't know how that's going to work out for you. She actually didn't make the team. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. But definitely for me, it was more of a joy thing than a pressure thing. I was about to say I took 7 years off of rowing. Let's be honest, I never really stopped rowing, but I took 7 years off of elite international rowing. And then when I realized that I was probably still fast enough, we'll see, but still fast enough to come back and do another Olympics, I was like, well, why do I even want to do this? And it occurred to me that I felt like I still had more to get out of the sport, but more importantly, I still have more to give. And so I thought about what are my goals for this year, what do I want to kind of get out of it and give to the sport and to the team. And I actually met with Tom Terhar, the national coach, just a little while ago, and was just like, all right, these are my goals. What do you think? Goal number 1, learn something new. And I think that comes in the form of a new challenge, and the challenge I'm most excited about right now is the fact that the women's 4 just got added to the Olympic program, and that is my favorite boat because I think it's the hardest boat. Because it's there's no coxswain, it's a sweep boat, so it's a little bit more unstable. And if you get in a 4, it can be awful. I remember rowing in a 4 at Radcliffe, where Liz O'Leary, we'd been rowing by pairs, and we were rowing by pairs up and down the river. And then she's like, "All right, take it off all 4." And she just watched us for a little bit, and then she was like, "All right, drop it back down to pairs." We did not row by 4 more than 10 strokes the entire training session because we just couldn't. But yeah, learn something new, take on a new challenge. My second goal, and this is something you've figured out, I think, more than I have, maybe, so, let's talk, is to be the best teammate I can be. Because I think back to 2011. So do you all know who Cara Kohler is? So she's the women's single at the moment. Just beat Jevi Stone. You probably know who Jevi Stone is. She's from here in Boston. Just beat Jevi at singles trials and is just like rip-roaring fast in single. So 2011, Cara Kohler had been rowing for 1 year at Berkeley. So she was literally like a novice, basically. She was going into her second year. And I had been in law school and returned to the national team. And Tom pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, listen, sorry, I'm going to put you in a pair with Cara, and I want you to teach her how to row," basically. And he was like, it's gonna be a little rough, but I think you can handle it. And I was like, okay. So we go out, and that moment where you like catch a crab or something, and you have accepted. You are just like, I'm going in. It's gonna happen. I've accepted. I've accepted that I am going in the water. That would happen at least 3 times every practice. Where she didn't seem to quite know when her blade was square or not, so she would just put it in unsquare. And I don't think she actually even really noticed because I was behind her, I was in the bow, just like, I was like ear in my ringer, like saving us, and she would just carry on. And I was like, bless you. Oh my God. Okay, let's find that squeak. You hear the little click? Okay, that's it. So it was rough, but I think back so fondly on that because I got to teach Cara Kohler how to row. Like, how else was that? She could kick my butt now. I have no doubts about that. But for years, I was like, "Hey, who taught you everything you know?" She was like, "You taught me everything I know." And that just like warms my heart. I love that. I want to give everything I can, be the best teammate, and actually, if I am able to do that, if I am able to teach some of those young women down there who already can kick my butt on the erg, but if I'm able to teach them how to row, and if they then turn around and beat me, and then I end up, let's say, I go to the Olympics as the spare, I think I will have accomplished my goal, even if I don't make the Olympic team. I mean, spare is sort of making the Olympic team, but whatever. Even if I don't make the Olympic team at all, if I have, 5 women tell me that I taught them how to row, then I think I can say, like, this year was worth it. I achieved my goal. So that is what motivates me now.
What words do you have for girls that are like hoping to be chosen as captains and for girls that will be voting for their teammates as captains?
I never was a captain. Were you?
Yeah.
I think you need to realize if you're thinking about voting for it, there's no right or wrong way to do it, but I think you've got to realize that it's a lot of work, and I mean that in terms of not just sort of tangible work, but I think there's a lot of like emotional effort that goes into it, right? That role of being a good teammate isn't just for the person who sits in front of you or behind you or the people that you identify as your closest friends on the team. You know, it's making sure that like the freshmen have a ride, right? And that everyone's taken care of and that you are like constantly aware of, you know, the dynamics on the team. Is it positive? And that you're prepared to put yourself in a position to absorb any sort of negative energy that's going on, that you're sensitive to it. I think it's a big responsibility. I think another piece of it that comes in terms of leading by example. And I think, you know, that probably means that most of you would have that particular, you know, criteria. Do you show up and you are, you know, you're on time, you are the best that you can be at all times, and people should look to you on a rough day and follow your lead if they're not feeling it, for example. I think in terms of if you're looking to vote for the right person, it's, I think it's really easy to let personal preference get in the way of what's actually the best way of doing something. I'm sure that there will be people, perhaps who are very close friends, who run for the position, who, while they will work very hard, might not quite have the right sort of temperament for taking on that leadership role. And for not voting for someone who's your closest friend can be really challenging in terms of like how you handle that yourself. But I think, you know, if I would always rather be on a team where no one wanted me to be captain, that goes on to have an amazing season and that wins because the dynamic is correct. And I think actually a good captain is someone who feels like that. You know what, someone else would be better for the job, they should take it. And so I think for you guys who are voting, it's about, you know, the captain, it's not about them, it's about how they will affect the rest of you guys as a team and having the courage, you know, to support them. And you start by supporting them by voting for the right person. I hope that wasn't too bad, but it's hard, but I'm excited for you guys.
I think the role of a good captain is to be the voice of a team and to be almost the go-between between the coach or the ref or whatever outside influence, outside factor in the team, to buffer the team from everything that's going on. And like Jen was saying, when you're voting for a captain, don't vote for the fastest person, don't vote for the nicest person, vote for the person who you think is most on top of shit and will protect you. Mm-hmm.
So you both have accomplished so much on the water individually and as part of teams. You have also done that off the water in your lives and the things that you do outside of rowing. Can you both talk a little bit about the connection between the lessons that you've taken from your time rowing and how you then apply them to very successful lives off the water?
Well, I'm going to lead off with something you told me and then turn it over to you.
It's going to be very clever, whatever she says.
Yeah, you once told me basically like, you get 2 out of 3.
Yes, you do.
So, you know, I think at the time it was like school relationship rowing. Like choose 2 out of 3, you can't do it all. And just understand that there's one thing that's going to have to either fall by the wayside or at least get tabled until later.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I mean, I've since retired. I still, you know, love sports and will always consider myself an athlete until the wheels completely fall off. But, you know, something that served me really well as an athlete and now at work and in business I find is really helpful, sort of looking back on it. I think a really good athlete is really comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Mm-hmm. Whether that's in the middle of a 2K and it hurts like hell and you're like, all right, bring it. You know, I'm not going to stop, you know, keep coming, you know. That moment, comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think it applies to work and it applies to exams. So I did my undergraduate at Oxford University, and the way the exams work there, date back to when, it started in the year 600 or something, it's archaic. So first of all, you go in a penguin suit, you have to go in black and white, you have to go in a sub-flask, and it's all ridiculous. It's not air conditioned, and they're in July. So there's all these challenges along the way. But also, I did my entire degree, so I read chemistry, in 4 days. You have to pass your first year exams not to get thrown out. You have to do all of your labs just to walk into the exam room. And then you do 3 hours on a Monday morning, 3 hours on a Monday afternoon, 3 hours on a Tuesday morning, 3 hours on a Tuesday afternoon, 3 hours on a Wednesday morning, 3 hours on a Wednesday afternoon, and 3 hours on a Thursday morning, 3 hours on a Thursday afternoon, and that's your degree. And if you fail, you fail. You've done 4 years and you don't have a degree. And I just remember people were like outside, they were so nervous, and I was like, we like 20 of these people just by not dropping my shopping. And I think that's part of it. It's that comfortable being uncomfortable. Most of the time you want to get a lot of sleep, and sometimes it's going to be a deadline for school and you're going to have to stay up late, and you have to suck it up, and you're going to do it just like you suck it up and you do your 2K. And I think that sort of mentality, you take the rest when you can. You're not, you realize that stress is expensive. Like stress, whether it's about a race, whether it's about an assignment, whether it's about, something that's going on at home or in a friendship, like that's really expensive. And sometimes you have to sort of recognize you're not going to be able to bring it to everything, but being able to, I will say it again, be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think that every time you go out and you do a practice or a race that's like that, you're setting yourselves up to have a great interview, to have a great exam, to turn in a great assignment, because when everyone else was like, you know what, I'm just going to call this done, you took the half hour and did the proofread at 1 in the morning. I'm not advocating staying up till 1 in the morning every night, but sometimes if it's a term paper, you might have to. And I think that that's the thing that I found that rowing and sports generally gave me, and it's been a gift through, my now professional career since I've continued, and it certainly helped me out when I was at school.
Yeah, I love that bit about the exam. When I walked in to take the LSAT, I remember it like almost made me nervous just watching people standing outside the room. They were so nervous. And I was like, okay, deal with these people going over here. And then when we sat down, I just remember looking around and being like, I sat on the start line at the Olympics. Like, please. And the other thing is, this is curved, so the more people I can psych out. Someone told me, how like standardized tests, you're like rushing at the end. You've always got 20 questions and like 30 seconds to finish them in. Someone told me when it gets to that last 5 minutes, whatever, just don't even worry about the last few questions, just fill in some. Put down your pencil and just start chuckling to yourself softly, because that'll screw everyone else up so much. But it'll be totally worth it. I realize I'm kind of going off topic of what you actually asked. But in terms of dealing with stress, there's an element of you have to figure out what you can control and what you can't. We're in a church, so I think the actual saying is something about God grant me the grace to accept the things I can't, the courage to change the things I can. But usually for me, it's like give me the coffee to change the things I can, and the wine to accept the things I can't. We were just talking earlier today about who was in my heated crush piece. Where are you? There we go. So I don't know how many of you were at Crash Bees, but the girl next to me in the first 5 strokes stopped, which already right, unacceptable, right? But I guess she got hurt, and indeed, like true enough, the paramedics show up.
Oh, they must have quite fast time.
So I'm in the middle of the 2K, and there's like a stretcher going by right in front of me, and like paramedics kind of running around my erg, like lifting this girl and like dumping her on the stretcher. And someone asked me afterwards, they were like, how did you handle that? And I was kind of like, handle what? Because it like barely registered, because I looked at it and I was like, nothing I can do. Oh well, just keep going. And actually, when I was in London, my boyfriend called me the night before and told me that he wasn't coming to my race for reasons I won't get into.
Now ex-boyfriend.
And I was just kind of like, all right, cool, see ya. And at the time, like, people were like, weren't you upset? And I was like, I knew that I couldn't be upset. So I wasn't, I couldn't control what he did. So I was like, whatever, I got shit to do, man. I gotta go medal the win. I'll see you later. So yeah, you gotta realize like what you can control and what you can't. And the things that you can't, just let them go. But actually, your question was more about how to do everything with the limited amount of time that you have. Is that your question? Multitasking. Yeah, it's interesting.
I think, to answer that specific question, the thing that I got really good at as a student athlete, and again, it's kind of carried over to other life, is there is no point sitting in the boat worrying about your term paper. That is a complete waste of time. Like if you have an assignment, an exam, if you show up to practice, do practice, right? You have carved out that time from your day, make it your priority, be present. And then when you come home, if you got whomped in a seat race, worrying about it all night isn't going to help. Do your homework, be like present with your family, go to bed, heal physically, heal when you sleep, and then get up and then come back the next day and try again. I think having that on-off switch and that ability to be present in whatever task you're doing, especially when you guys are balancing like training and school, is really important. That I think is really efficient in terms of your energies. Will make a big difference between like you and the competition and you and the best you can be personally.
I really believe in having things outside of rowing that you care about and that give you a sense of confidence and even self-worth, because rowing is not always going to go well. You will lose sea races. I had weeks when every day I got in my car and cried because I was just doing terribly. But I always had something else. Maybe I was in school, I was studying for the LSAT, I was working at an equine medical center. You kind of always need something else in your life. And as a result, it makes you very productive. Because you could just be like, well, that didn't work out. All right, I'm going to focus on this, and I'm going to crush that for a while, and then come back. Yeah?
So that's what you guys have ever had, and how you would kind of characterize the role of coaching in rowing?
How we would characterize their coaching.
And what made the coach great?
Yeah.
Maybe not best coach, but a great coach you've had.
Yeah, get out a pen. Row 360, March issue of last year, I actually wrote an entire article about Tom Terhar and why he's an amazing coach. But I wouldn't say he's the best coach I've ever had, because for me personally, I alluded to this woman that I worked with in high school, and she was the best coach that I've ever had, because, that's a good question, why? I think really just because she understood why I love the sport so much, and I love it because it's fun. And I remember we would row singles together, and there had been a big rainstorm the day before, and there were a bunch of logs coming down the river, and I just kept hitting logs. I was getting really frustrated, and at one point she just turns to me and she says, "You're really logging on the miles today, aren't you?" And after that I was like, "Oh, I can't be frustrated anymore." That was pretty funny. Yeah, she understood that you just, certainly for me, and I think it varies with every athlete, but for me, keeping it light and fun was the best way to perform.
I think it's definitely individual, because my characteristics are a bit different. I mean, it is funny. I think it's what you need, and also who else and what else you have in your life at a given time. My best coach ever, as I can best describe in the Queen's language, is like a raging asshole. He was a terrible, terrible person, but I won with him and I learned so much. To give you some examples, once I was at a single and for 20K he sat behind me and said, "No. No. No. Yes, still no. No." And once we had a clarify, I actually was out of line and said, you. And he said, F you more, and then waked me down the entire way back to the warehouse and was signal. However, he was the coach who taught me to row, and in the same way that the coach that made the biggest difference to Caryn identified what she needed, he realized that I needed someone to make me angry. That was apparently how it was good, how it was fast. Screw you, I can do this. You tell me I can't, watch me. And so I think it's different. It's different, and I think the main takeaway is, at least through my lens, is you guys have friends, you have your teammates, you have your family. You don't need your coach to be your best friend. You need your coach to help you win. And if you look back on things, the best coaches will be the ones who help you get the best out of you. They may not always be the best methods. You should absolutely never, ever stand for anyone who bullies you or anyone who makes you feel small. Unacceptable. But I think at the same time, be thoughtful in what you ask of in your coach, in the same way that you would want them to be thoughtful about what they expect you to do. You could still win a national championship if you don't have the perfect catch. If you are the best teammate you can be, you have a good erg, you send that finish, you work hard every day because you're part of a boat, you add something, you contribute to that team. And in the same way, I think whether it's your coaches now, whether it's your coaches if you go on to run in college, don't expect them to be everything. And whatever they do have, if you have a coach, they're your coach. And unless you want to quit the team and go somewhere else, you got what you got. And so I think the responsibility is 50% yours to understand what they can give you. Listen, take what you can, and if there's things that maybe are a bit negative for you, be part of the team, right? There's not, at the same time, you go back to this idea of being a good teammate. I think like ragging on the coach to your teammates isn't necessarily the most positive thing for the locker room either. So I think, be selfish, take what you need from your coach, get what you can, and if you have to check some stuff at the door, then check it at the door. But I would say it's a 50-50 relationship. I think the best coaches are the ones who get the best out of you, but you have some responsibility in that as well.
Yeah, who was that? He probably knows he's a raging asshole.
I have a soft spot for him because he taught me to spell. But the only person who did it.
Yeah.
So can you talk about the mentality of the race a little bit? So you guys are really technically proficient, so what are you thinking about during a 2K on the water? Is it like public feedback or coming out? I mean, do you have a monologue going on? Or is it just kind of going?
Don't think, just row. No, actually, seriously, I actually think kind of the less the thinking, the better. And I had one of my best erg workouts ever, where every stroke I said in my head, I think, don't think, just row. Don't think, just row. Don't think, just row. Because your body is actually your body is capable of more than you think it is. And if you look at Navy SEALs, they train down in Coronado, which we went and visited the training center in 2004 because we were training in San Diego in the winter. But one of the instructors said something really interesting. He said, when they go through Hell Week, and Hell Week for Navy SEALs is kind of the culmination of their boot camp training. And it's an entire week where they don't sleep, the whole week, and they're just doing arduous physical tasks. And he said, over the first kind of 3 days, their performance declines as they get tired. And then they reach this point where it actually starts to climb. They didn't get any rest, but their performance starts to improve again. And what happens is they get so freaking tired that their brain just shuts off and their body takes over. So your brain will try to shut down your body as a self-preservation mechanism. But I promise you, I'm 99.9 repeating % sure that you won't actually die in a 2K. It has happened, but usually that's extenuating circumstances. Don't dehydrate yourself. So you just have to basically turn off that self-preservation mechanism. But then, of course, how do you do that, right? I don't recommend staying up for 3 days in a row the night before your race. That's a bad idea. But you probably do it already. you play mental games with yourself. You know, you're like, well, you know, okay, we're doing 6 pieces, but the last piece doesn't count, so really it's only 5 pieces, right? And then I just go my hardest on the 5th, and then the 6th, it didn't count, but I just do it anyway. Or, you know, in a 2K, you're counting strokes. Does anyone count strokes? I count strokes. We get to the end of a piece, and I'll be like, that was 256 strokes. Okay, I don't get that technical, but you know, like in your sprint, you know, you do 10, 10, and 10 or something, right? It's because your brain like kind of can't process 30 strokes. You're like, 30 strokes, how could anybody do 30 more strokes? But you're like, I can do 10 more strokes and then another 10. And okay, fine, I can do 10 strokes, right? So you have to almost like figure out what tricks work so that you don't have, your brain doesn't have to process the enormity of what this race is about. And actually, I mentioned Tom was really good at pre-race speeches. One of the things he said right before London is he was like, breathe 1 stroke at a time. Like breath in, breath out, 1 stroke at a time. And I literally was like, catch, finish, catch, finish, catch, finish, that whole race, just to make sure that I was focusing on one thing at a time and not the finish line. Because this moment you start thinking about the finish line, it starts receding into the distance. That's my race plan.
I think, yes. I think the stroke you're on is the only thing you ever have any agency on. The one before is gone. The next one, that chance is still out there. You might as well make the best use of what you've got. I always used to think on OCAS, time passes. It will pass. It's what you do with it, right? You have an opportunity, like you're not going to stop clocking, so you might as well make good use of it. And I do think that it's worthwhile taking some, and push back if you disagree, if this isn't good advice. But I think it's worth thinking in advance. I certainly used to.
You told me to push back, sorry, go on.
Got jokes. And there might be a time that you're like, I ain't got this. Right? Well, it's too much, or I've gone too hard, or like, you know, you're at the 1300 meter mark of the 2K based on how you feel, like, oh God, you know, should I come off the gas? And I think having a tool, a phrase, something that you can say to yourself to help you in that moment, and having it pre-prepared and knowing it's going to come, like the cartoon with the angel and the devil, right? You have to make sure that devil's ready to be smacked down, that you've got something. Right? Whether it's you're going to your best mate and they're sitting in front of you and there's no, and even if you decide you don't care, they care and you are not going to let them down, you're not going to be that person. Or, you know, if it's an ad test and, you know, you're putting a number that your practice pieces say you can, and you remind yourself of that. If you want to come up with a few numbers, first of all, if you come up with a few numbers, still obviously, let's keep going. And second, you know, to know that you have the evidence and I can do this, and people believe in me, and I believe in myself, that I think it's worthwhile having a few of those tools in the toolbox, that if you need to draw on them, that they're there and ready to go, and you don't let the self-talk get in the way. You can like quiet that devil on the shoulder, and you get back to the stroke, and the next stroke, and the next stroke.
Mine is, this is supposed to hurt. Like the moment, you know, it kind of starts hurting and maybe a little bit sooner than you thought or whatever, or like maybe you're surprised by it. It's like, it's supposed to hurt, so all good. Systems go.
Yeah, I think that was pretty much the same. I read some psychology books about pain and how people actually deal with horrendous chronic pain, like people with terrible diseases, and a lot of the psychology is don't fight it, acknowledge it. And so myself, hello, I've been expecting you. You're not getting in the way, and I just keep on going on. And I think I had some more colourful language about what I thought about being here, but I was expecting you, and I'm not going to fight you, I'm just going to carry on. And I think that is really powerful, that it's not going to overwhelm you, you're not going to get tense, you're not going to stop. It's like, you know, hello, it's supposed to hurt, I've been expecting you, and we're just going to carry on.
I'm just kind of curious, have either of you practiced mindfulness, or have you been trained in mindfulness?
I mean, I feel like we've been practicing it, but not without knowing it. You know, it's one of those things that's like, it's age old, but yet only recently has it become a thing. Mm-hmm.
I agree 100%. I think that we had the privilege of competing at this very high level, where most people around us sort of probably at that time more by accident than anything else happened to practice mindfulness. It was sort of part of the routine. I actually think now the fact that it is sort of much more well known, and there are some really good and accessible resources out there that can help you. So, you know, is there value in practicing mindfulness? Absolutely. Absolutely, because I think, as we said, I think it was just more sort of organic that most people were, you know, displaying those traits, practicing those behaviours. And as I said, I wish those resources had been around, because you take your blows otherwise, or you figure it out.
I mean, just struggling to get your catch in the water is a form of mindfulness, right? You are just focused on what is happening that very moment, moment to moment. And I think that's one of the beauties about the sport.
Can you talk a little bit about like how you can also give your family
Meaning like workout to workout as opposed to within a workout. Yeah, especially when you might feel like there's an injury coming on, which I think is, you gotta, for me, it took me 10 years, I don't know, to figure out, well, first of all, rest is probably the most important thing in injury prevention. So I actually, as I got older, I got fewer injuries. Like you would think you would get more because it's actually harder to get enough recovery. But I just knew that it was that important. And then it just took, I mean, I had to say, like, it just takes a lot of experience knowing like what kind of ouch is a, yeah, good, just train through it, and what kind of ouch is a, ooh, I might need to back off a little bit. I would say that most successful athletes err on the side of pushing through too much. And of course, like, is that how they became successful? Or is it like they already have, you know, you already have a mindset, we already have a mindset of like, I'm just gonna push through it and like we should really pull it back. But you get faster, as you probably know, you get faster when you rest. You don't get faster when you train, you stress your body, and then when you rest, you get faster. For me, the turning point in being able to avoid injury was less about figuring out like, hey, I really need to rest, and more about establishing the trust with my coach, so that when I said, hey, I really need to rest, he'd be like, all right, see you in 3 days. And there was just that implicit trust of like, that is what you need, I trust you, and you know, when you get back, you'll be good to go. And that, so maybe it involves some sort of, sounds like your coaches already know a lot about movement and injury and physiology, so you know, bring your coach into the circle of trust.
I think that's really good advice. I think you'll probably get it wrong a few times along the way where you find out what that line is. I also think now, certainly with the British team, even really early on, they were really rigorous about they will take structures on body monitoring. Even if you don't have any whiz-bang at it, your resting heart rate in the morning is going to be a really good guide. It will be pretty regular day to day. If it spikes, call your coach, you're not going to train. You're going to make someone else sick or you're going to get hurt. You are under-recovered, and it is really incredibly reliable, and it's a really good objective measure as well. Like, it's not affected by stress and things. But talking about stress, and I think that this is really important, and it's much more of, I think, the European mentality, but it's interesting, is your stress hormone is cortisol, right? Your body doesn't know if you are swimming in cortisol because you went to States and you raced 4 2Ks back-to-back or 1500s back-to-back, and you know, you won them all, and like your body's stressed from physical exertion. It doesn't know if you're like in a car wreck. It doesn't know if you had like terrible news, you might have lost a grandparent, something like that. The reaction to your body is still the same. That burden of stress, right? Training is stress, and then the response is healing and getting faster. So I also think, you know, as Caryn said, trust your coach, but also trust the people around you. My parents weren't athletes, so like I remember I would come home from college and my mum would be like hiding my water bottle. What is wrong with you? What are you doing? And she's like, you're washing all the nutrients away. And I was like, you need to step away from my water bottle, right? So, you know, there's definitely like a picture on there. She was definitely trying to help. She was absolutely convinced that your wheat should be yellow because otherwise you've washed everything away. And I was like, that's not how it works. So, you know, it's interesting. But I think, you know, there are going to be sometimes where you aren't going to make a good decision. And if someone you trust is advising you to step on the gas and you don't want to do it, it's probably a good thing. But there are definitely things you can do. I think that morning resting heart rate, it should be within like 2 or 3 weeks. The rule of thumb is if it's like more than 10% higher than what it typically is, and just keep it in a notebook. If it's more than, or in a Google sheet, I guess these days. If it's more than 10% higher, right, take a light day, and if it's more than 20% higher, you just take the day off. And the chances are you'll get your feedback on you within like 24 or 48 hours.
You made a really interesting point about your body doesn't know why it's stressed, whether it's mental or physical, and it reminds me that there's of the deep connection between the physical and the mental. And actually one of the first, I mean, resting heart rate is one of the indications of overtraining, but another one of the early indicators is actually psychological. And now that I think about it, the first thing I notice when I start to get overtrained is I cry. And I think, you know, guys tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it's more of a female thing, so, you know, maybe you can relate. But I remember Tom to her once saying that when he started coaching women, he noticed, like the first time a woman had cried in front of him, he thought of the line from A League of Their Own. There's no crying in rowing. But then actually he realized there was actually quite a lot of it in women's rowing. Every single one of my teammates has cried in front of him, which is really awkward because he's like very a little bit stiff and he just sort of blinks at you. I mean, I remember one day he came up to me after training, and it was like an easy, steady state day, but it had been quite a hard week of training, and all he said was, "How's it going?" And I looked at him and I went, "I don't know." And his eyes just got real big, and he was like, I don't understand what's wrong. I was like, I don't know, you've been tough. I think I'm just tired. And next thing I know, the entire team got 2 days off. And everyone was like, nice. You're welcome.
So I have another reaction, though I don't cry as much, but like I'll think I saved the document and I didn't, and I'm like, what? And I'm like, flip out, because like I'm on the brink, like I'm totally under-recovered, not well positioned at all to like deal with the fact that like I might need to retire something for 15 minutes, it's not a big deal. But I think there's definitely those psychological cues, and many parents in the room, you might want to, you know, look out for some of these things too.
So when you guys are in a season, you're sweeping, and you're on one side for an entire season, what are your strategies to prevent imbalance?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Stop!
I mean, if you can switch sides, that's great. I learned to row the other side about in my 3rd year, and it was really hard at first, but you know, you just get used to it, still rowing. But assuming that you can't switch, you know, late season, whatever, find a good weight trainer. No. I mean, that is a really hard question. Do yoga.
I also, to riff off that, I don't think just the soft heat is the problem to solve for. I think it's very apparent, but rowing, whether you're rowing,
you're always pulling.
Starter or pull, or whether you're starting, right? You spend your entire time over like a little pretzel with the tightest little hip flexors in the world. You should be spending a lot of time on recovering. You should realize that with the volume of training that you guys do, nothing about the load is balanced or normal, and then sort of compensating for that side, making sure that you're getting, like, you're doing your core work, making sure that your QL, so both sides of your back, like your lats and stuff, and lose the hip on your outside finish, outside maybe? I don't know. I spelled one of your heads was probably closer than the other. Take care of that. I mean, it should be part of like your usual. I mean, it's probably an early signal that you're not doing enough recovery generally. I don't think rowing on a given side is a problem to solve for. Steve Redgrave rowed for 20 years on 5 Olympic gold medals on the same side. Like, he doesn't walk around in a circle. I just think if you're starting to feel the effects of training, whether it be like you're compensating on one side, like are you doing your stretching, your rolling, your recovery? Is anything that feels niggly being addressed, right? Are you doing your core work? Are you doing all of those like little like supplemental exercises that make a difference? You had that, didn't you?
Kind of going along with that, what are some of your favorite cross-training things other than rowing to do? Sounds sad.
Cross-country skiing. I mean, it's a little warm out now, but so fun.
So my answer there is different. You don't want to get hurt, you need to do your recovery, but as someone who came to the sport really late, and you guys are in high school, so you probably haven't yet been running that long, and there's a lot of value in doing sport. Like, I think if there's another sport that you enjoy playing, so if you're an off-season athlete in something else, that's terrific. But if you want to, like, going and sitting on an exercise bike for an hour and calling it rowing training, it's making you fitter, sure, but I think at this point, unless you're an injury risk, and especially at this time of the season, rowing and hunting is probably a pretty good bet if you want to earn some regional championships and some state titles and get to nationals and be competitive at nationals. That's probably a bit of a bar humble answer. But don't, with the volume of training that you guys are doing in the spring, and you miss a lot of time on the water this week, so just enjoy the water and do sport.
Yeah. As I started to try to get fit again to get ready to rejoin the team, I actually stopped cross training because I was like, I got a limited amount of time, still working. And if I want to get faster at rowing, I should probably row. And then just the other stuff that I do is more injury prevention. Like I lift weights and I do some yoga and stuff. But that's more just to make sure that I'm balanced.
Either of you witnessed a ejector crab before?
No, and I'm so sad. I will keep returning to the Charles every year until one day they put me in like an old go boat and it finally happens.
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, I've flipped plenty of times, but...
I fell back as well, actually, into the water.
Wow.
I was in Germany and I was wearing feet out in a single and I was like...
Oh, and you caught it, and then...
No, I wasn't really paying attention. I didn't know where the hell it was. So I like whomped a buoy and I had feet out. So what happened is there was nothing to really stop me. So I was just like, whoa!
I think that qualifies as an ejector crab. It's not a crab, but like your oar hit something and you ejected.
It was witness someone else's. And I was being coached by the gentleman I described earlier, so my first thought was, this is back in the day, I had some enormous walkie-talkie that was probably really expensive and was I'm like duck diving down, because I'm like, I can't lose the walkie-talkie. This training camp would be terrible.
Oh no, did you get it?
I got it.
Okay.
I got it.
No, haven't. You shouldn't volunteer. I was going, are we going to see one this weekend? No, haven't. Don't want to.
Yeah.
So, like, when you guys obviously have a lot of experience, I know that sometimes when people row for a long time, they kind of lose sight of the love of rowing and start to get sick of it. My sister rows in college, and she has seen a lot of girls that like row all year round, and it ends up like hurting them more than helping them because they like, a lot of love with the sport. Like, what would you guys say like, keeps you loving it and not getting like
That reminds me of a team meeting we had once on the national team. Tom was like, end of a long week, and Tom was like, all right, so Sunday, tomorrow, for your day off, I want you to come on down to the boathouse, just on your own, whenever you want to do it, and do 20K on the erg. This was our day off, and this girl, she was new. She sort of raised her hand, and she was like, is that optional? And he just looks at her, and he's like, every practice is optional. But it was a really good point, because it was like, it's not like we're getting paid to be here. We're here because we want to be here, right? So like, as soon as we don't want to be here anymore, you can leave. So what keeps us being there?
I've got an easy two.
Yeah.
Like thunder.
Yeah.
I think the first thing is, even you guys will probably have periods of time where, because of like school commitments or like injury, you can't get in the boat. And I think instead of getting stressed about that, realize that it's going to help stop that kind of burnout and actually really missing it a bit now and again. Like we were chatting, you swim in the winter, right? Like actually enjoying getting on the water. I live in Florida, you guys live here in the tundra through the winter, you presumably miss rowing instead of erging. You know, there's something to be said for like missing it a bit, but at the same time, going all the way back to what we were talking about in terms of being able to be like present and mindful. Like when you're rowing, enjoy rowing, but then don't think about it when you're not there. Like don't be an idiot, right? Don't go and like break your hand punching through a window. Inadvisable, right? But at the same time, like you can be a whole other human when you're not there. You can be like crushing in school. You can be like a really good friend. You can be like a good sister. You can be a good brother. You can be like present in other ways. And I think not allowing it to define you when you're not at practice is a really good way to stop it from becoming overwhelming and stop it being something that's like burdensome instead of something wonderful.
I would boil it down for me to a glass half full versus glass half empty mentality. And what do I mean by that? So I've seen people who get to college and decide that, you know, they really quite enjoy doing all these college things and rowing is getting in the way and so they want to quit. So they saw rowing as getting in the way of the things they want to do. For me, rowing has opened so many doors and I made so many friends and I got to go to events and it also gave me a nice, it was a constant in my life. It was like a grounding kind of thing. So for me, it wasn't what is rowing making me miss out on, but it's what is rowing giving me. And realizing that if I quit, I wouldn't have all those things that were so important to me just made it an easy decision.
Thank you both.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jen and Caryn. You guys were fantastic and a great conversation. I know that we went a little bit longer. Thank you for understanding and being here. So I don't know if you can hang around a little bit longer, but we hear that you have some questions, and then I did impose upon Caryn, I'm not going to lie shamelessly, if she would share some of her Olympic medals, so she's brought them here. If anybody would like to see. I have to say it's a pretty intoxicating thing. So thank you all, and
good luck.
Yeah.
With the upcoming races, guys.
Have fun.
For you. Yeah.